Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for tuning in. My name is Chandra Kassar, and on behalf of ZHN, I'm very happy to have with me Anastasia from SAC, Sixth Form Students Council, and Father Jimmy Bartolo, rector of St Aloysius since 2013. This is the second episode of our podcast series. Thank you to everyone who's listening, and thanks to our guests. So I just wanted to start by asking you to introduce yourselves very briefly.
So my name is Anastasia. I'm a member of the Student Council at St Aloysius, and my main role within the council is to act as a bridge between the student body and the administration to ensure effective and productive communication. As a council, we work to promote different initiatives and organize different events, all to foster a community of togetherness within the college. Personally, I'm a maths and physics student at the college, and I feel that this helps me in my council role, as I can relate to and I'm aware of the different difficulties and the issues within the student population.
Very good.
Great. My name is Father Jimmy Bartolo. I'm a Jesuit and I'm currently serving as rector of St Aloysius College. I'm also the coordinator of the Church Schools Association in Malta. So thank you for your invitation.
Thank you for being here. So the very first place I wanted to start with is, I think, perhaps with the Student Council role. So it's a role that has a lot of responsibilities, a lot going on, a lot to organize. And I wanted to ask you what you do in more detail, or tell us a bit more what your day-to-day role in the council looks like, but also why you chose to take on this role as a member of the council with all these added responsibilities over and above your A-level exams.
So when I started my first year at the sixth form and learned about the opportunity to become a member of the council, I knew that I had to run for a position right away. And during my previous experience at secondary school in the council, the experience that I gathered there helped me to sort of make me more eager into joining the council. And sort of all the events that we do, I believe that they are important for the school community, they create memorable experiences for all the students. Mm-hmm. And also I'm really motivated to be a part of the council, as knowing that all the students enjoy everything that we do, and also knowing that our efforts are valued by external organizations as well, as we try to integrate our sixth form with the broader community.
That's fantastic. Father Jimmy, I wanted to ask you about how you became rector.
How I became rector? Okay, I was a university chaplain between 1998 and 2008, and I finished as rector. Father Michael Bogeia took over the chaplaincy, and the then provincial Father Paul Patch asked me to remain at the Imsida community, which is close to university, the Jesuit community, as superior, and go to the sixth form as a chaplain and assistant head. So I did that for about 3 years. And then Father Patrick Magro, who was director, was finishing his tenure as rector. And so I was sent to Boston to continue to study educational leadership. And when I finished my studies, I came back and I became rector in February 2013. That is how I became rector.
If I can just jump in there, you said educational leadership.
Yes.
Can you tell us, one, what that is? And two, if you had to say what the main takeaway you learned from your training on educational leadership, what would it be?
Yes, educational leadership has to do with vision, has to do with mission, it has to do with having, in our case, a Jesuit vision, which we need to implement with so many other colleagues. You have courses about management, leading people, curriculum, inclusion. You have courses about human resources. You have courses about the cutting-edge research about inclusion. The universal design for learning, for example, was something that was very new to me and which I really enjoyed learning. And of course, you have placements in different schools, including the Jesuit school in Boston, for example, about instructional leadership. We needed to observe different teachers, give feedback, etc. So yes, it was a good preparation. But then when you come back to Malta, you need 2 or 3 more masters, which you hadn't studied before. For example, the local educational legislation. You wouldn't study that in your educational leadership in Boston. You need to learn how to deal with the Malta Union of Teachers, how to work collaboratively with them and with the Archbishop's Curia, with the Secretariat, with the you don't learn these things when you are studying. Then, of course, with experience, you get to know many more things that you hadn't studied before in a university. Yeah.
Thank you for that, Father Jimmy. Before we move on to the next question, I wanted to ask both of you what you would say the hardest part of your role is. Anastasia, please.
I think the hardest part is, as a council member, I
Right.
think it's mostly just trying to appeal to everyone, sort of to organize something and to create something that everyone will enjoy. And there will always be difficulties in doing that because everyone has different preferences and things like that. And also, I think balancing school, so and the levels and the intermediates, it's already a lot of work. And then balancing it with all the council things, I think that's one of the most difficult parts.
But you're handling it well, I'm sure.
Yes.
Father Jimmy.
Yes, I would say the hardest part of my role as rector is to accompany certain people who are suffering a lot, or when we have losses. Recently, we had a big loss. One of our LSCs passed away because of illness, and it's very hard to live these moments with the educational community. 2 years ago, we had another loss of another LSC. And it's very challenging and difficult to accompany people, to process the grief, and to accompany people in this loss. Also, when you have difficult situations in families and or students undergoing very difficult moments, mental health issues, or when a member of staff is undergoing very tough moments in his or her life. I think we are blessed to have good colleagues in the management teams of the different schools who are very competent and know how to accompany, and that is a blessing. But still, that is very tough. That is very tough as a leader to accompany in a very compassionate manner these people who are undergoing very difficult moments.
Thank you for sharing that, Father Jimmy. I wanted to move on to something else now. It's something that you touched on earlier, Father, and it relates to Jesuit education.
Yes.
So, St Aloysius College is run by the Jesuits, a Jesuit school, and I wanted to understand what that means. First of all, from your perspective, Anastasia, I'm going to put you a bit on the spot. What it means to you to go to a Jesuit school, and how you feel that you learn from this experience, that you learn from the Jesuit way of doing things, and what it means. And then we'll get a more perhaps technical answer from Father Jimmy.
I think a Jesuit education, it encompasses a more holistic approach to learning. It's not just scholastic learning, so
Right.
just your subjects that you choose. It's more the development of the self and how your personality and your character can help others and how it can help yourself as well. And I think that the values that the Jesuit education instills in me, such as service and compassion, it teaches me to not only be a person that thinks about myself, but also how my actions can influence the world around me.
Thank you. That was fantastic. Father Jimmy.
Yeah, thank you for that reply. I think you're touching the heart of Jesuit education. Yes, One of the mottos that both of you have heard so many times when you were at college or you are still at college is that the aim of Jesuit education to be men and women for others and with others. As you know, this was coined around 50 years ago by the former Superior General of the Jesuits, Father Pedro Arrupe, who was very explicit about the aim of Jesuit education. He was addressing past pupils in one of our schools in Valencia, in Spain, and he said, this is the mission of the Jesuits. To form, it was then men for others. Now, of course, it's men and women for others, and lately it became men and women for others and with others. This is the objective of Jesuit education. We share common things with so many other schools, state, independent, but what is the specific? This is the specific. Later on, we were more concrete in unpacking what the meaning of men and women for others means, which is the 4 C's, what we call the 4 C's. So the aim of Jesuit education is to have a competent person, so it's about competence, and we can say a lot about this. Second, compassionate, to be people who are very compassionate with the others. Third, it's the conscience. We need people to know how to decide. We need people to know how to make good choices in life. This is about conscience, and to distinguish between good and evil choices. And finally, competence. So these are the famous 4 C's. And lately, we are talking about the 10 indicators of a Jesuit school. You want to know what a Jesuit school is like? Then there are 10 indicators. I'll mention some of them. One, it is Catholic, a Catholic identity, but in dialogue with other religions and traditions. Secondly, it has to be a safe school. It's about safeguarding. If there's no safeguarding in a school, it's not a Jesuit school. Third, it has to be, we have to form global citizens. 4, care of the environment. 5, accessible to all. 6, it's about interculturality, and so on and so forth. I mean, you can spend so many, you can spend a lot of time discussing each and every one of them. But I mean, I've given you now the gist of a Jesuit school, a Jesuit education.
Brilliant. Thank you very much for that. What I wanted to ask now is, picking up on what you said, I think you both spoke about compassion, you spoke about the environment, Father Jimmy, but in the context of our country at the moment, specifically, how do you feel that in your day-to-day life outside of the college, do you live these values? Do you use these competencies that you develop in your day-to-day life in concrete terms in addressing challenges that Malta is facing at the moment? So I'll be very eager to hear about that, whether it's something small or whether it's something large. I'm sure we have a lot to learn from that. So over to you, Anastasia.
So I think that this Jesuit formation, it acts sort of like a moral guide. So it teaches me different values and ways of thinking of how to address the problem. So if there's a certain issue that is in the country, for example, how to address it and also how to act upon it. So it teaches me the ways and sort of the method of how to properly and how to beneficially act upon these issues.
But can you give us an example? I might be pressing you, but something that someone who's listening might be like, geez, that is a situation where I should be thinking more like that. Something to, something for me to learn from as well.
For example, I think that in today's world, one of the biggest issues is climate change. I think we've been hearing a lot about it, and it's been an ongoing issue. And I think that through learning how to address it, so for example, you learn to widen your view and listen to different points of views of the problem or the issue. And I think that through what the Jesuits teach, such as like thinking about others and how others may influence you and the people around you. And for example, in climate change, I think that especially youths are pushing towards more environmental protections. And so through the different approaches and different values, I think you can work together and find a solution.
So, very good. That's fantastic. What did you
Yeah.
Chris?
Okay. I do it through education, which is my mission. And I'm going to give some examples. In the curricula offered in primary, secondary, and sixth form, we have to make sure, for example, you mentioned the environmental degradation. We have to make sure that this is a top priority when teaching, not religion only, not sciences, but all the subjects. So one thing is teaching and learning. The other is to have very clear policies. The other thing is to implement them through actions. Let me give you an example. For example, at college, we have many PV panels on all the roofs of the schools and the sports complex. We make sure that the waste management is done in the best way possible. We make sure as well that through the curriculum in different subjects, as I mentioned, educators integrate what they're doing, be it mathematics, be it physics, your subjects, be it any other subject, so that they would integrate these values and then implement them. We have eco-scola teams in each school. They have to come up with concrete projects. They will be assessed every 2 years. They have to start all over in the game, and they have to own this as a school. Conservation of water. We recently had a project with an engineer, Marco Cremona, very famous hydrologist in Malta, who devised a way in which the rainwater is pushed back into the water table, so that the table water, so that it will go back to this level. And we push it back, because what is happening is that the seawater is coming up into this layer and we're having problems. I mean, little things. What we buy. So it's about policies that relate to consumption of goods, etc. Water management, waste management, teaching and learning. And this is the way we try to do it in educational institution, and how we make parents and guardians aware of these values so that we can work together. In other words, when students go back home, they have to practice what they preach, be it switching off the lights, changing all the lights into LEDs, and buying electrical cars. But this is in small steps. But if everybody does small steps, then I think we will be effective.
Brilliant.
We're doing what we can.
Very good. Fantastic. So the next thing I wanted to move on to, in ZHN, a big part of what we do and the way we work is a process called See Judge Act, where you evaluate a social situation, you assess that in light of your values and what you believe, and you take decisive action on that. And I through the next couple of questions, I think what we're going to do is a mini version of that, in the sense that my next question to both of you was going to be, what do you feel are some of the most fundamental challenges that young people in Malta are facing at the moment? Both through direct contact in the council, both in your case, Anastasia yourself, the ones that you own face. So I'm very eager to understand what it's looking like, and then we'll move on to the next phase. Over to you.
Okay, so some challenges that we face. So first, as a council, I think it's trying to be both beneficial to the student population as well as the other people outside of the council and the college itself.
Right.
And I think another difficulty that I think all the students face is balancing school subjects and education with their personal life, so extracurricular activities, and everyday challenges.
Do you feel that young people in Malta are living a fulfilling life? Are they happy with the way they live? Are they happy with or is there anything that they are particularly frustrated about, particularly disgruntled about? Would you say there are any? We mentioned the environment.
Mm-hmm.
Aside from that, is there anything else that young people are really charged about in your cohort?
I think it's maybe being heard and making sure that what we think and what we learn about each other is heard by the sort of the decision makers of our country. And I think that's the main issue we're having, that sometimes we feel that the decisions made often overlook what we need and what we will experience through their decisions. So,
We hope you're listening, decision makers. But Father Jimmy,
Yes.
what
Your
would you add?
question is about challenges that young people face.
In our country.
Okay. Let me start with young people. I mean, I spent 10 years as university chaplain, and now in the school you meet people from 4 till 16. I feel that mental health issues and social and emotional problems are on the increase, especially after the pandemic. I feel that one of the biggest challenges is how to help young people go through these problems and help them. We are noticing more anxiety, more depression. This is one thing that strikes me. Second thing I notice is a certain loneliness. You tell me loneliness. There is a lot of a search for meaning in our young people. I'm very positive, by the way, about the future generations and the current generations. I think they are very prepared. I think there are a lot of talent and a lot of goodwill. But I notice that there's loneliness. And in an age where we use so much the social media, and we have all the Instagram, Facebook, and all the different kinds of social media to communicate. We have a lot of content. But then when it comes to real and deep, meaningful relationships, I think that young people are being challenged to live this. They want this, but it's becoming more of a challenge. For the rest, I think that the challenges that we face, whether we are Generation Z or millennials. I think in Malta, and I'm thinking of Ernst and Young research about the current generations and the challenges. I mean, they mentioned overdevelopment. I mean, young people are very environmental conscious, thank God, much more than we were, much more than we were. But because we are noticing that we have a lot of overdevelopment in Malta and Gozo, and this is really worrying, not only young people, but adults. Traffic problems. Everybody is talking about traffic problems. It's not about young people, it's about Maltese people in general. And the environmental degradation is another issue that, I mean, just to mention, our image in the international fora is another issue and challenge. So these are some of the challenges I notice. One final thing is that I noticed that the way things are at the moment with exams, with A-levels and intermediates, the content is still huge, in my opinion. So for them to finish and to end up with having 2 A-levels, 3 intermediates and systems of knowledge, I think it's too much content-wise. And what our students are doing, when I talk to people, talk to the heads of junior college, De La Salle, the Gozo, sixth form, higher education, higher secondary in Nashar, we talk about it, even the independent schools. But we noted there's a lot of anxiety about finishing subject, finishing intermediates after first year or the beginning of second year, going for private lessons, not assimilating enough a subject which needs 2 years. And we're in a race to get subject as early as possible. It's creating a lot of anxiety in our students, and I'm worried about that. We need changes in this, and we've been saying over and over again, listen, we need to change the system. These are some of the things I notice.
That's very powerful, and you're very clearly very passionate about it. I wanted to ask Anastasia whether you would agree with Father Jimmy's diagnosis, whether he's still in touch.
to circle back upon the amount of subjects that we are learning at school, I think that is one of the biggest problems as well. That's coming from myself and from all the people that I am with at school. I think the fact that there are so many subjects and some that we would consider unnecessary, sort of, that you wouldn't really need them, especially in the course that you want to pursue at university. And I think the reason for doing subjects early, I think, is the fact that you want to focus more on what is more important to you and what you think is more important, especially for university, I think. And to make sure that sort of you have enough time for everything. And yes, I think it is difficult to do an exam just after first year. But I think the main issue is that there's a lot of content and you're trying to manage with everything and studying and extracurricular activities. And it's just a lot of things at one go, I think, especially if sixth form is just 2 years. So
Right. That's very interesting, and of course, some of the challenges are pretty stubborn. Some of these conversations, I'm sure, we would have had, what, 5 years ago when I was back in college. But building on, I think what I would like to add, Anastasia, is I was particularly struck by your point about being heard, about your high, it's a very high level point. It's not a specific challenge, but I think it's a systematic concern of young people not being involved in systems enough, that many young people resonate with at the moment across the world, not only in our country. And I think I'd like to focus on that one in particular. So I would like to think that this podcast, with all that it is an opportunity at least to start to stimulate some conversation led by young people. But I wanted to ask, in view of these Jesuit values and this Jesuit education that you're developing and are so well versed in, what actions on these specific problems that you've spoken about? We've spoken about environment, but about this being heard, about this being involved and given voice in fora across the country, in addressing these issues with mental health and with the syllabus, what do these Jesuit values call us to do?
I think that the different values that we are taught, so social responsibility and compassion and being present and being proactive in everyday situations, I think those really teach us to not be passive and be involved in everything that is being done, not just in our country, but even on a worldwide scale. And I think that through these values and these ideas that are given to us and that are taught to us, especially from the Jesuit education, I think that they give us like a guide, sort of, and a compass on how to move forward with them.
But do you have any, if you had to say, I mean, it's a lot to ask of you. You might say, I don't know, because I wouldn't know either. But is there anything that you would really like to see done concretely in the country, in the college, by an organization like ZHN, by something like the SEC Student Council? Is there anything that you think really this is something that we can work on together, individually? Is there anything that comes to mind?
I think maybe just having more platforms just for students and for the youth that are in Malta and around the world, of course. And I think that by involving everyone, so even if there are certain decisions made, I think there should be sort of a voice that are just for the students. So to have that input from us, I think, is a big step in making the decisions that will ultimately influence our generation.
Fantastic.
Yes,
Anything to
I'd
add?
start with one of the points mentioned by Anastasia, the social responsibility program. So we need to be proactive in educating young people to be responsible in now and in the future, and to be very responsible and contributing citizens later on, wherever they are. So the social responsibility program is there so that people become aware of the different problems people are facing and give their time free of charge. I know that, I mean, you mentioned this struggle that students have to do, to do their studies, but also to be involved in different organizations and find time for entertainment. And it's a delicate balance. But at the same time, I tell prospective candidates, I'm very clear about it. If you don't want this kind of formation. In other words, you will have 50 hours during first year of service to others. If you don't want this, don't come to college, no problem. There are other good sixth forms. Go to other sixth forms, and if you don't want this, no problem. But this is part of our formation. This is part of our vision. Why? Because when you do voluntary work in Ireland, when you help students who are illiterate, when you help old people, when you do something for the environment during these 50 hours, you become aware, you reflect, and then you act. So this is very important. And also, we are very happy to have many past pupils who are contributing and have contributing. I mean, one person that comes to my mind immediately is Dr. Katrine Cavalieri, who is a lawyer who has spent all her life so far helping refugees, helping immigrants, fighting for their rights in our countries and abroad. I mean, this is the type of students and past pupils we would like to have. Why? And she said this, she often says this, I have learned this from college and I continued to learn, and I cherish these values, and now I'm practicing them in my professional life. This is the ideal of Jesuit education. Recently I've been in touch with a group of psychiatrists. Oh, what a joy to see these people who are at college, who are really helping people with mental health problems, and they're doing it in such a competent manner. I mean, I feel very consoled when I see, and other people in other professions. This is the type of student we would like to educate.
Very good. But are there any gaps that you see, not necessarily in college, but in youth organizations, in the country? Is there anything concrete that you say, listen, we really do need more of this as church schools, as student bodies, as educators?
Yes, I think we need to prepare young people for politics with a big P. I think we need Christians to be present in politics. Politics in Malta and many other countries is being associated with corruption, and I'm sorry to say, I'm saddened by this. And Pope Francis always insists that politics can be one of the highest forms of charity. He's quoting Paul VI, of course, but he keeps on saying it. And wherever he is, we need people in politics. Why? Because as politicians, they can serve others. Unfortunately, people are associating politics with corruption, malpractice, and we need to do something about it. We need more people to get into politics. And as the Pope say, we need to pray for politicians, because that's a very, very important role and very delicate role. I think this is where we are failing at the moment.
That's very interesting. Thank you, Father Jimmy. It's very, very, very bold statement. It's very strong to hear that. Anastasia, not to put you on the spot, but would you agree with that? How do you feel about that, looking at young people today, your colleagues, your peers in class? Do you feel that is a message that would resonate?
I think yes. I think politics is a big discussion point in today's youth. And I do believe that there's a lot of misinformation and lack of knowledge that is being shared and being properly understood by everyone. And I think by involving younger people that have more, I believe, a more objective idea of what is right and what is wrong through the new sort of progressions in the world and everything. And I think by involving us and having more people present in these big decisions of not just the country but the whole world, I think that it is very important and very moving, sort of. We can actually change something if we become more involved. So not just sort of speaking about it to each other or just thinking about it. I think if we're just proactive and we strive for that change, I think it will happen.
Needless to say, I couldn't agree more with both of you. I mean, it's a joy to hear, and of course, as ZHN, this is something that we believe in very strongly. We believe in people being involved in politics through political entities on political issues, because that is a form of service which influences society, and oftentimes it's the most vulnerable and the poorest who suffer the most from the consequences of decisions not being made properly. So that's I was very glad to hear that. So thank you to you both. That was the very gist of what we wanted, or how I was hoping to touch on. But I think now I was very curious to hear more about, first of all, what as a council you have planned over the course of the next year, what sort of activities you're carrying out, and whether there's anything in particular that you'd like to plug or mention to people in case they're interested in learning more about what you do, getting more involved in your events or activities and whatnot.
Some things that we are planning on is, first of all, making the school community more together. So by presenting different initiatives and different events and things like that, I think that we can incorporate this community, so the sense of community within the whole college. So yes, we have the different courses and the different people that have different subjects in the courses that are present at school. And I think by our efforts, I think we can integrate everyone together. And also, I think that our main aim is to just not be just a council for the school, but also influence external organizations. So, for example, last year we had a fundraiser and we managed to gather a sum of money for breast cancer organization. And I think it is really important that whatever we do not just influences us, but influences the people around us. And by doing this, I feel great motivation, and even the school community. I think we should be proud of everything that we've accomplished and will accomplish in the future.
We should be very proud indeed. Father Jimmy, I wanted to ask you if there's anything, so people might be hearing this and saying, listen, that's just education. Sounds like something interesting, sounds like something I want to learn more about. I was wondering whether you could just speak about maybe some resources or some opportunities or some avenues where people might be able to learn more, to get more involved, stuff
Yes.
some people should check out.
Great. Jesuits in Malta are present at St Aloysius College, which is one of the biggest educational institutions run by the church in Malta and Gozo. That is one possibility. We have a strategic plan, we have a vision, there are changes happening. So, I mean, please come along and be in touch with us at college. At the university chaplaincy, there are also Jesuits. There's Father Patrick, who's the current chaplain, and other Jesuits and lay people who are working there. For university students, please go to the chaplaincy. There are many opportunities for you to grow. During these summer months, there are many groups serving poor people in different countries, Egypt, Ethiopia, Europe. This is very interesting and life-changing experiences. When I was university chaplain, I often shared with others that there are two moments that are unique. For me, it was unique. One is accompanying young people through spiritual exercises. So weekends in silence, you talk to the Jesuit once a day, twice a day. You are given Bible readings to reflect on, and then you come and share, and this is accompaniment. It's one of the most beautiful things, to see what God wants from you in life. This is one. And second, to be in touch with young people, with poor people, to these voluntary experiences, voluntary work experiences. These are special moments. You can find this and many more things at the university chaplaincy. We run the Jesuit Refugee Service. I mentioned Dr. Catherine Camilleri. We also have 2 retreat houses, one in Gozo and one in Malta, Mount St. Joseph and Manresa House. This is for people to go and spend time in silence, be accompanied. And we have the Paulo Freire Institute in Zaytun, which is also, they offer literacy program, community work, and help people in need as well. Just to mention a few, but our order is a very, very international order. If you want to know more about the Jesuits, you just type Jesuits Global on Google, and you will find all the different networks. In education, we have about 2,500 schools, primary and secondary schools around the world. I've just come back from an international conference on the Catholic identity of Jesuit schools in Indonesia. We were more than 110 participants representing all the different networks of Jesuits around the world. we are an order spread around the world. It's very interesting, but you have to think globally and act locally. This is the secret of Jesuit education. So I think, yeah, be in touch, and we will accompany you the way we can.
Interesting. Fantastic. So before we wrap up, that's all the questions from my end, but I wanted to ask you whether you have any final thoughts or comments that you'd like to say or pass on to our audience. Please.
I think one thing that I'd like to say is that I really hope that through the different resources that are present in our everyday life to social media and even just people that you meet, I really hope that everyone gets involved and everyone tries to help and tries to be present in everything around us. I think that's the main thing.
Very strong.
Cool. I mentioned politics, but let me finish with education. I would like a very strong message to young people. Go for education. Become educators. Education will change people, and without educators, you don't have doctors, you don't have lawyers, you don't have architects, you don't have engineers, name it. Without teachers, primary school teachers, kinder, secondary, sixth form, you will not have professionals, you will not have tradesmen and women. So consider seriously whether your vocation is as an educator. And I want to thank the government and the Malta Union of Teachers for this very good agreement that has been reached recently. It's a very good financial package. There were criticisms, but I think as rector, I have to say that it's one of the best agreements that was reached recently. And yes, the financial package is very important because it is acknowledging the profession of teachers, of educators. Go for it. It's more than finance. You're touching the lives of many, many people who can develop, who can contribute to society, who can make people very happy in being of service to others. That is my message to many young people going for a university degree, especially.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you to, first of all, everyone who was listening. Thank you for tuning in and listening to what we had to say. Thank you, Anastasia, Father Jimmy, for being here. Thank you also to everyone who works at the college, all the teachers, all the learning support assistants, all the community who work there in making the college run day to day, which has given so much to so many people over so many decades. And I look forward to continue to be in touch and hopefully working together more closely in the future. So thank you very much to everyone.
Thank you so
and
much.
Cheers.
Both of you.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Proceed.